Chicago Faith Stories. Chapter 1. The Corner and the Cross. Mark chapter 8 verse 36. For what shall it profit a man, if he shall gain the whole world, and lose his own soul? The wind knifed down 63rd Street, sweeping plastic bags across cracked pavement. The scent of fried chicken from Harold's drifted in the air, mixing with exhaust from the 63rd Street bus that hissed to a stop. Derek Gray stood just outside the Red Line entrance, hood shadowing his eyes, hands buried deep in his hoodie pocket. His fingers traced the sharp edges of an envelope. Eddie had passed it to him 2 minutes ago with a smirk and no explanation. Easy cash, bro. No questions. Eddie's voice still rang in his ears. He scanned the street. A couple of CTA workers in neon vests were patching a section of sidewalk. 2 teens in puff jackets were arguing over a phone. Further down, Mrs. Green was slowly making her way up from the train, a plastic grocery bag in each hand. Derek sighed. Here we go, he muttered. Derek. Mrs. Green called, breathless but smiling. Boy, you're too smart to be standing out here freezing. He shrugged. I'm just watching the street. Watching trouble, you mean? She set her bags down and straightened, eyes narrowing on his hoodie pocket. Still letting Eddie talk you into things. Derek looked away. I'm just trying to survive, Miss Green. God isn't paying my rent. Her eyes softened. Baby, the devil pays fast, but the bill comes due with interest. For what shall it profit a man? She let the verse hang there, her breath clouding in the cold. Derek smirked, but it was thin. I'll think about it. You think fast when it's about money, she said, picking up her bags. Think faster when it's about your soul. She walked on, boots crunching against salt scattered on the sidewalk. Later that night, Derek cut through an alley on his way home. The streetlights were dim here, flickering against graffiti-tagged brick. He heard a soft voice and turned. Tasha Brown stood outside the corner store, her breath visible in the cold as she counted coins in her palm. She wore her school hoodie, backpack hanging off one shoulder. What are you doing out here this late? Derek asked. Trying to get some bread for Grandma. Prices went up again. She frowned at the change. Thought your church helped people, Derek teased. They do, she said, stuffing the coins back into her pocket, but they can't help if you won't let God in. Derek looked away. The envelope in his pocket suddenly felt heavier than the night air. A block away, sirens wailed. A police cruiser tore down the street, lights flashing. Over the crackle of a radio from an officer leaning out, Derek caught a name, Eddie. He stood still for a long moment. Mrs. Green's words came back, like a drumbeat in his head, choose you this day whom ye will serve. Pulling the envelope out, he tore it open. Cash spilled into his hand, and a small bag of pills. His stomach turned. He walked to the nearest dumpster and tossed both inside. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell chimed. Chapter 2. The Empty Seat. Hebrews chapter 10 verses 25. Not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is. The gray clouds hanging over Chicago that Sunday morning looked heavy enough to press down the rooftops. Tasha Brown stood at her bedroom window, chewing her lip, watching a dusting of snow swirl over the sidewalk. Her Bible lay open on the dresser, but her eyes kept darting to her phone. Meet us at State Street. We hitting the Mag Mile today. The text from Camille, her friend from school, blinked back at her. She should have been thinking about the sermon Pastor Lewis would be preaching in less than an hour. Instead, she was picturing herself sipping hot chocolate at Ghirardelli and laughing with her friends, far from the familiar hymns and folding chairs of New Hope Church of Christ. Her grandmother, humming in the kitchen, called up the stairs. Tasha, you ready for church? Tasha hesitated, thumb hovering over her phone screen. I might go with my friends today, Grandma. She shouted back. There was a pause, long enough for guilt to creep in, but her grandmother just said, be safe. The red line rumbled under her feet as she and Camille clung to the rail. The train smelled faintly of winter coats, salt, and the faint tang of burnt brakes. An older man in the corner read a tattered Bible, lips moving silently over the words. They were 2 stops from Lake when voices rose at the other end of the car. A group of guys in hoodies were shouting, one of them waving his arms wildly. The argument escalated fast, too fast. Tasha's pulse quickened. She edged toward the door, but the train kept moving. One of the guys shoved another hard against the metal pole, and the car seemed to shrink. Then, out of nowhere, Derek was there. He must have boarded while she wasn't looking. He stepped between 2 of the men, hands out. Chill out, man. Ain't worth it. The one with the wild arms glared at him, then at Tasha. You know him. Tasha froze. She could say no. She could keep her distance. But something inside her made her nod. Yeah. The train screeched into Lake Station. The men backed off, muttering. When they stepped out into the bitter wind, Derek shoved his hands into his pockets. You okay? Yeah. Thanks, she said. He shrugged. I ain't looking to be anybody's hero. Just don't like stupid fights. Tasha glanced at him. Still. You didn't have to. He smirked faintly. Guess I'm hanging around Miss Green too much. She keeps telling me God sees everything. They parted at the next corner, but Tasha couldn't shake the thought. She had skipped church, but somehow God had still shown up in her day. Chapter 3. Ashes in the Wind. Psalm chapter 34 verse 18. The Lord is nigh unto them that are of a broken heart, and saveth such as be of a contrite spirit. The air in Bronzeville carried a heavy stillness that afternoon, as if the whole neighborhood knew what had happened. A white tent stood outside the small brick church, heaters blasting in a losing battle against the February chill. Rows of folding chairs filled the sidewalk, the street blocked off by sawhorses. Janelle stood near the front, wrapped in a long black coat, eyes hidden behind sunglasses. Her younger brother, Marcus, had been 20 years old. Gone in a spray of gunfire outside a corner store, just 3 nights ago. Derek arrived late, pulling his hood low. He hadn't planned on coming, but Eddie had called that morning, his voice tight. It's gonna be packed, bro. You might wanna show your face. Tasha spotted him near the back and gave a small nod. Mrs. Green sat in the front row, gloved hands folded in her lap, her Bible resting there like it belonged more than anything else in the scene. Pastor Lewis' voice carried over the crowd. Death has a way of making us stop, he said, standing behind a simple podium. Stop and ask, where am I headed? What am I living for? Marcus's life was cut short, but every one of us here, we don't know if we've got tomorrow. Janelle's hands trembled. She wasn't ready for sermons. She wasn't ready for verses. She wanted her brother back. When the service ended, Mrs. Green rose and walked slowly to her. Baby, she said gently, I don't have words to fix this. But I know the one who binds up the brokenhearted. Jesus knows what it is to weep over someone he loves. Janelle's voice cracked. If he's so good, why'd he let Marcus die? Mrs. Green didn't flinch. I don't know why the bullets fly when they do. But I know they don't get the last word. Death doesn't win with him. She took Janelle's hand, and for a moment, they stood together, 2 women in a city that broke hearts daily, clinging to the only hope left. Derek lingered by the curb, watching the wind catch loose memorial flyers and spin them down the block. Ashes in the wind, he thought. That's what life was here, quick to rise, quick to fall, scattered before you knew it. He didn't realize Tasha had come up beside him until she spoke. You okay? He shrugged. Just thinking. If God's real, he's got a messed up way of running things. Tasha looked at him, but didn't argue. Maybe he's the only one holding it together. For the first time all day, Derek didn't have a comeback. Chapter 4. The Ten Commandments on 79th Street. Exodus chapter 20 verse 15. Thou shalt not steal. Saturday afternoon brought a rare break from the cold, the kind of day when folks actually came out of their apartments and the streets hummed with life. Pastor Lewis decided it was the perfect time for something bold. He stood outside New Hope Church of Christ, a portable speaker at his feet, a large poster board propped beside him with the Ten Commandments printed in bold black letters. A folding table held Bibles, tracts, and styrofoam cups of coffee steaming in the chill. Mrs. Green was already posted up with a smile, greeting passers-by. Tasha handed cups of coffee to anyone who would take one. Derek leaned against the church wall, hood up, scanning the street, not because he'd volunteered, but because Mrs. Green had insisted on supervised company. Pastor Lewis' voice rose above the rumble of traffic. These aren't just old rules from a dusty book. They're God's words for us today. Words that keep us from destroying each other, and ourselves. A few people paused. Others laughed and kept walking. One man muttered, "Don't need no preacher telling me what to do." That's when Eddie showed up. Hands in pockets, grin sharp as ever, he stepped into the small crowd. Man, you really out here with a list of rules. Ain't nobody keeping those. Pastor Lewis didn't miss a beat. You ever steal, Eddie? Eddie's grin faltered. What? Thou shalt not steal. God's not asking if you got caught. He's asking if you ever took what wasn't yours. Eddie scoffed, but his eyes flicked away. Everybody takes something sometime. That's exactly the problem, Pastor Lewis said gently. God says it's sin. And sin's got a price tag. That night, Derek found Eddie 2 blocks over, halfway through prying open the back door of a closed convenience store. Seriously? Derek hissed. You were just clowning the pastor about this. Eddie shot him a look. Come on, man. It's easy money. No one's gonna miss it. Derek's mind flashed to the commandment on the poster, the way Eddie's face had tightened when the pastor spoke. Nah, Derek said finally, stepping back. Do what you want, but I'm not touching this. Eddie shook his head, muttering something about Derek going soft. As Derek walked away, the sound of splintering wood followed him down the block, and so did the pastor's voice, sin's got a price tag. Chapter 5. The Crossroads of Chicago. Joshua chapter 24 verse 15. Choose you this day whom ye will serve. The storm rolled in before sunrise. Thick, wet snow slammed against windows, turning streets into rivers of slush. The wind howled between the brick buildings like something alive. By noon, the city had issued an emergency alert, warming centers open. New Hope Church of Christ was one of them. Inside, the sanctuary smelled of strong coffee and wet coats. Rows of folding tables had been pushed together, piled with blankets, sandwiches, and styrofoam cups of soup. Mrs. Green moved from table to table, handing out gloves. Tasha ladled soup beside Janelle, who had volunteered in spite of her lingering grief. Derek stood near the door, stamping snow off his boots. He hadn't planned on coming, but Mrs. Green's phone call that morning hadn't left him much room to refuse. Just help keep order, she'd said. And try not to look so mean. By mid-afternoon, the place was full. Families huddled together. Men with frostbitten hands cupped steaming soup. Kids chased each other between the pews. The door blew open, letting in a blast of wind, and Eddie. His face was red from the cold, eyes glassy. Yo, he muttered to Derek, you got a minute? Derek shook his head. Not now. Grab a seat. Get warm. Eddie glanced around, uncomfortable. He wasn't used to being in church unless someone made him. As evening fell, Pastor Lewis gathered everyone near the front. He stood with a worn Bible in hand, voice carrying over the hum of the old furnace. This city's streets will take your soul if you let them, he said, eyes sweeping the room. But there's one who can save it. His name is Jesus Christ. He died to set you free, from sin, from fear, from hopelessness. You can choose him tonight, or you can walk back into the storm. The room was quiet, except for the hiss of the furnace. Derek felt the weight in his chest, the envelope he'd thrown away, the fight on the train, Marcus's funeral, Eddie at that back door. It was all there, crowding his thoughts. For the first time, he wasn't trying to shove it away. Pastor Lewis' words pressed in, choose you this day. Derek bowed his head. All right, God, he whispered under his breath. I'm done running. Somewhere deep inside, it felt like a door cracked open. Epilogue. The storm passed by morning, leaving the city glazed in ice and sunlight. The streets were still broken, the struggles still real, but in one small corner of Chicago, hope had taken root. And it would grow.